Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. ReadswithRosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, taking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. And rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Sala Falava and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. I am so excited to introduce today's guest. She is Samoan, a multidisciplinary artist, an eco-preneur, and marine environmental activist. And she is the owner and director of Living Koko, a zero-waste cacao, Koko, chocolate manufacturing business that was founded on the desire to reconnect with and support Pacific Island communities and those in need. It is my honor to welcome to the show, Fipe, Preuss. How are you, sis? It's such an honor. How are you?
I'm good, sis. How are you?
I'm buzzing. Like I'm really trying not to. I have bad habit, always fangirling over the people that come on the show. I'm like, get a grip, Rosa. Take a deep breath.
I'm fangirling over you. We've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and when you reached out, I was like, B.
Man, honestly, yeah, I've been watching your journey. I've been watching it for quite a while, but it's always like the courage, like trying to build up, the courage to like ask, would you be interested? Because there are so many amazing people like yourself who are just like out there, a strong Pacifica woman, strong Samoan woman, just out there smashing it. Businesses that are not just like building but uplifting others. So when I finally built up the courage, I know like nearly 1 year later, I was just like, it's now or never. It's 2023. Get going. So yeah, it's such an honor. I was actually laughing when I was doing the whole clapping thing because I'm always reminded, invest in a clap button. I might do that in the next episode though. So for now, welcome. Okay, so before we get into our talanoa and spin some yarns, I would just like to ask you if you could just do a brief introduction, shout out your family, your villages, your people.
Yeah, awesome. So Talofalava, my name is Fipe Preuss. I hail from the villages of Vaiusu, Suisienga, and Vailima. My mother's name is Lucia Henrietta Stanley, and my father, and she is Samoan and with English descent, with the Stanley name. And my father is Stuart Ivan Benjamin Preuss. And he's also Samoan with Scottish and German descent. Yeah, so that's me.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So if you're out there listening to us, I say this all the time, Fipe's cousins, fam, aunties, uncles, support the podcast. Your cousin, your auntie is on the show. So let's get into this because when I was doing research for our talanoa, for our interview, my research was really like Living Koko. But then I discover, wait a minute, Fipe is cultural practitioner, performing artist, director. She's been in like marine and environmental activist. I was like, wait a minute, is this the same Fipe? So then I find myself like, okay, I need to ask these questions before we talk about Living Koko. Tell me about Fipe, the performing artist, director of dance. Are you able to share a little bit about that background?
Sure. I guess we're all, as a Pacific Islander, we all grew up performing, our cultural performances, White Sunday, Man, Polyfest, hey, like, all those big festivals and things like that. So I grew up in all those spaces, and performing in many different Pacific Island Pacific platforms. Dance practices. So, Samoan, Tahitian, Cook Island, Hawaiian. So that was my youth. When I left high school, I was training different schools in New Zealand on Polynesian dance for Polyfest. And then that kind of just continued after my travels through Europe when I moved to Melbourne, and I really wanted to reconnect back to Pacific Island culture and not being directly connected to a church here in Melbourne. It was, how do we bring people together and create a safe space and still celebrate our culture and our community? And, dance is something that I went back to. So dance kind of just led me to running events, creating festivals and things like that. I going further back, when I was at university, I was studying performance, classical guitar performance. I'm a trained classical guitarist. And of course, my whole family were like, what are you going to do with that? Gala at the barbecues. So then I changed my major from performing arts, classical guitar, to accounting and business studies, which is a huge change. But I guess that gave me a great foundation for running a business, but also when I explored more my arts practice and my performing art practice here in Melbourne, there's a business side to being a performer as well. If you want to make money off it, you need to understand your worth. You need to understand the spaces you're getting into and things like that. So that really helped. That was a good foundation for it. I have a huge love of music. One of your questions were, who were my role models growing up? And I thought, oh my gosh, my role models are going to sound so random. But besides my sisters and my aunties, who were just incredibly strong women who, fought with grace and also just fought fiercely. So we're activists within their own right, within their communities, standing up for our families, standing up for themselves. I had those role models within my family, but as a guitarist and as a trained classical guitarist, I wasn't dreaming of having a business growing up. I was dreaming of being on stage and being, the next Slash, or the next Jimi Hendrix, or David Bowie, or my father. He was in the New Zealand Army, and he went off to the Vietnam War, well before I was born. And so he came back with this influence of music, which was so different to, what the rest of my family and the rest of our community listened to. So there was all this, American rock, English kind of rock, and also activism music from in the 70s against the war and standing up for human rights. So a lot of my role models were, Jimi Hendrix. I wanted to slash through my guitar like that. I wanted to slay it. Jimmy Page, who is the guitarist of Led Zeppelin. Yes, different role models like that.
This is mind-blowing stuff. I'm like, here I was minding my own business, searching up everything I could find about living Koko, and then bam, here's a whole nother layer to your identity. Wow, sis, this is amazing. It's pretty amazing. But I also saw that you did scuba diving. I was just like, multifaceted, like classically trained guitarist, scuba diver, and you got to travel and work all over the world. I mean,
I'm an instructor. So at one time I was a dive instructor. I guess it was just my yes year. Like I was around 27 at the I was so scared of the water. I had gone through a really horrible breakup that had so many really strict boundaries around my life when I was with that person. So in my wanting to move forward, wanting to break free of all of that, I decided to have a yes year, and I moved to Thailand for a year, and took up diving because I was so scared of the water. Did my first course as an open water diver, and I remember the first time going down in the swimming pool and being able to breathe underwater was the most calmest I've ever been in my life. And so from that moment, I hadn't even been in the ocean. Like I was literally in a swimming pool, and I thought, I want everyone to feel this way. I want to remove anxiety and stress from people's life, and if this helps me, then maybe it'll help others. So I did all my courses up to an instructor, and through doing the courses, through doing becoming a dive master, and then a master scuba diver, which means you've done hundreds and hundreds of dives.
Wow.
I just had a real deep reconnection with the moana that I wanted to share, that I really wanted to share, especially with our Pacific Island people. Many of us are afraid of the water and can't swim. So I wanted to show that beauty. I went back to Samoa to teach scuba diving, and was living in Savaii for a little bit, and realized like I spent more time understanding what was going on under the water than even above the water. Like most of my days were the water, hanging out with different fish, and it was the best.
Wow. The whole time you're talking, I'm like, can someone out there write a book about Fipe's life? Yes, no, thank you. Okay. Anyone listening, watching right now? Seriously.
I think it all comes together. Like I think those stories and experiences and narratives have really also shaped the way we work within our business. Like I want to make sure that whatever I activate, respects the kinships between ourselves and our community. Yes, our Pacific Island community. Yes, the wider community, but also the kinships within our environment, relationships with animals, relationship with trees, things like that. I want that respectful space created with anything I touch, actually.
So I guess that leads us right into the Living Koko journey. The name Living Koko, was that something easy to come up with? Was it something that you had kind of been thinking about for a while? Did you have a whole list of names?
Actually, no, it was probably done the way I do a lot of things. It was a pressure moment. What do we call it? We call it Living Koko.
That's it. No, yes, no, we're going with it.
That's what we're doing. That was pretty much it. But for us, it means continuing the stories of our ancestors, of our bloodlines. Koko meaning cacao, but also meaning blood, or toto meaning blood. It was acknowledging that, with myself, with Glenn, even with our team, our ancestors have made so many decisions, small and large, that have brought us to where we are all here together within Living. So, acknowledging all those decisions, all those migration decisions, all the smallest decisions, crossing the road at a certain time, which makes you meet the man of, the man you meet, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So we really wanted to acknowledge that within our business name.
It's the living part for me. And this whole time I've been following, months of following, nearly a year of following your journey as a business, as a company. It's always the living part. I think it's a teacher. I overthink it, and I just think of it as like this there's always that space to evolve, to grow, to reflect. There's always room for improvement. Like when I follow, just following your journey and just seeing how it continues to grow and develop, it's like, it's so cool. I have no idea about it. I don't know anything about it other than what I see through your website and through social media. It's pretty amazing. You mentioned earlier, you weren't dreaming about being a business owner, or you wanted to do other, like, it wasn't this, like, so when did this finally hit you that, hey, this is something I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to follow this. Let's do it.
I guess you have many aha moments before you have your true aha kind of moment. And so there were lots of times that we're feeding into the final decision. My time in Samoa, working as a dive instructor, and, each time I'd go back home, there, you could see some of the challenges that Samoa was facing. There was more homelessness. There was more crime in town. There were just lack of jobs, lack of jobs, lack of infrastructure and things like that. So, that was playing on my mind for a number of years. How do you create something that supports the most vulnerable people, ensures that, that a good living wage can be made and doesn't disrupt too much, our Samoa way of life. I guess back home, working with nature is what we're extremely good at. It's not something we talk about openly, but it's something that we've all learned via osmosis. Being with our families, there's things that we all know because we've remembered that, mama used to do it at this time. When the shadow falls a certain way of the, from the tuila plant, that's when the pololo comes out. The way the cosmos is moving, the shadows that, the sun is creating at certain times of the year, the different secular rhythms within the month of the moon cycles and things like that. There's all this like incredible, beautiful knowledge, Indigenous knowledge that, we're not really standing up, which is kind of, what happens in Western spaces back home, and this deep connection to our whenua, to our custodial lands, and which is something a lot of Indigenous people around the world don't have. So it's, well, how can we activate our custodial lands, ensure that those lands stay within our villages and don't get, moved out to foreign investment, to foreign businesses, things like that, and support village economies. So Living Koko was kind of created with all that in mind.
I was wondering about how easy or how difficult it was to navigate that space. Like when we talk about, the Samoa way, making sure you're not kind of overstepping the line, but also, letting our communities back home know that, hey, this is, like, we're genuine here. We want to give back to the community. We want to uplift. We want to support. We want to build with you. We're not just coming in and, because there's always that conversation.
Those conversations at a grassroots levels happens with Savai Koko. So Savai Koko is run by Salimua Vai and Rosie Vai. The Vai family have been in Koko cultivation for a couple of generations. Like, they've been in the game for a long time. We sat with Salimua. We did a trade mission with Pacific Trade and Invest. And at the time we had been working with WIBD, Women in Business in Samoa. And Women in Business are all about supporting agriculture, village economies, things like that. They were helping us collect the koko, navigating a lot of those conversations, understanding the prices and things like that in Samoa. So for us, as a community development practitioner, you understand that, you're not going to go in with your ideas. And I know, I spend most of my year in Australia. I know my mind is westernized hard, and it takes a little while when I go back to Samoa to defuse all of that and go back and say, oh yeah, okay, this is actually the way we do it back home. Get out of that business kind of framework. So we were blessed to we spent a number of years going back and forth to Samoa just to make the right relationships and build those relationships. And the more we kept going home and showing up each year, 2 or 3 times a year, just solidified that we weren't, one-hit wonders, crazy idea, and then wanting to leave. We also knew that I wasn't a chocolate maker. Let's start there. We weren't chocolate makers. I was a diamond instructor that ran music lessons. What did I know about chocolate? Nothing. So when we went to Samoa and started speaking with Wibdi, started speaking with Salimor, and the Matais from our family's village, our family, and from other families and stuff, we realized that Koko was the thing that was going to be, I guess, the canoe or the channel that we were going to work with within Samoa. Even when I was like, could I just maybe teach swimming?
No side hustle, no.
Like guitar, maybe at the band and there's a hole in the wall in Samoa. Like, no, it's Koko. And Koko being in my family's history, understanding the cultivation of Koko, again, through osmosis, just learning from my aunties and uncles and my mom, growing up in plantations, Koko just keep coming back of that is what you're going to use to build this business. You need to have those, you're right, you need to have those consistent relationships around that are working directly with the farmers and, people like Salimor Vai, Rosie Vai, who have been in cacao for such a long time. And also, the Samoan Chamber of Commerce who want to support cacao cultivation, and Whitaker's, there's so much Whitaker's has done to for the post-harvesting processes and helping Samoa understand the quality of beans and the different fermentation and drying processes that need to happen to get it to a good quality to make it into chocolate. There's been relationships that have happened on the ground, and we've been really blessed to be part of those conversations and then it all growing from there.
When you reflect on this journey thus far, especially when you talk about the connection to the land, Indigenous values, family history, realizing the stream, what are some of these important lessons that have been passed down to you from those who have come before you, your aunties, your uncles, your elders? What are some of those important lessons that you continue to, or values that you continue to just keep right here so that it keeps you true to what Living Koko's mission is about?
Before I go into any meeting or discussion in Samoa or even here, is to remind myself for me, what my definition of, the definition of what true talanoa is, sharing stories for the greater good. And then, my mom used to always say, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use it in proportion. Those pearlers when you get
that could be a potential episode title. I'm just kidding.
It's true though, and I have to remind myself of those things. I'm there to listen and listen with compassion. Don't come in with the pressures of a Western mentality, the time frames, the unrealistic timeframes that, sometimes Samoa can't meet because we're working with micro businesses. Someone's plantation is a micro business. Living Koko is a micro business. So whatever may happen to the owners or the families that own those businesses reflect into the business. If someone is sick, things stop. If someone passes, things stop, have to stop. And, that's something that, I always have to remember going into Samoa, going into these conversations, that things work differently, that our ways of being back home and connection to the land means that we need to work within these cycles, human cycles, cosmic cycles, land cycles, and things like that, and to honor them.
I read this interview. I can't remember the date. I couldn't find the date. I read a couple of things, but this one, you say somewhere, the spiritual and cultural relationship with our environment makes me want to protect her fiercely. I was thinking about how you talked about, the ocean, when you were being an instructor there, and that feeling, that freedom and doing that, and now being a business owner and being part of it, like you say, the micro businesses, but there's a bigger picture, there's the bigger collective, right? And can you talk a little bit about that, that whole, I like how you said that, protecting her fiercely, because it makes me think that while you seem super humble, you're also someone who will fight to the bitter end for the good of humanity. It reminded me when you were talking about your aunties and your sisters, that real
Yeah, we all come with our humble spirit, but man, we could go gangster if we need to, right?
That make me get all beast mode on you.
Like, this is my brand, but don't even go me. That kind of stuff.
Do you have to take that attitude and that fierce, that strength, and do you have to at times bring it out so people are not kind of trying to gaslight you and step on you, as a business owner, when you're in different spaces, all this is important, you've alluded to all these different aspects. Do you gotta get real, yo, this, I'm going into this room, I'm bringing this, I'm coming in there?
Yes, and then I also have to make sure that I'm not leading, like I am leading with my good intentions and not ego, and I'm ready to fight, because it can really taint my lens on the space. So I actually have to really, before I go into a space, deconstruct those ways of thinking, remove that kind of that energy from me, because I also feel that the energy that I have, that I'm holding within myself, is going to be the energy that spills out into a meeting. It's going to be the energy that comes out of my business, and I want to make sure that I am poised. That I got my shit together. That I'm with myself and contained, and that I'm always asking questions with curiosity and compassion. It's very easy to get into reactive mode, and harder. But it's taken a lot of practice for myself to be able to hold that reaction and turn it into a question that's going to dive deeper into understanding where they're coming from. But then at the same time, being able to drop knowledge, wisdom into the space. So if I'm in a space where I am trying to protect our mahi, our work, our planet, things like that, that I lead whoever I'm with into a space of reflection of how they would feel if this was happening, and what is the future for their children in this space. Where are they leading with that kind of intention with their business if they're not leading with the good of the planet? Yeah.
Great answer. Great answers all around, actually. I'm learning a lot. Can you give us an idea, just for those who are unfamiliar with, the cacao industry, from the plantations to the shop, how long are you looking at generally?
Firstly, like cacao only grows in like hot, humid
Mm,
climates and needs to be grown under like a canopy of shade. So in
mm,
Samoa, it's usually grown under coconut trees. Um, it's best to be planted around the waxing to the full moon cycle, and
mm,
that's just like optimum amount of nutrients that are nutrient content within the soil and rising to the top of the soil, and also the sap within trees and plants are coming up, rising to the
mm,
top, waxing in full moon. Where waning moon heading into a new moon is really good for root plants and things like that. Waxing and full moon is really good for fruit trees. It takes, from the moment you plant it, it takes about 3 years before it fruits. So
mm,
having those conversations with farmers in regards to planting their crops, it's a long-term plan.
mm,
So there are other conversations going on about short-term harvest of galo, taro, things like that that will take 6 to 8 months before harvest with planting, and so they can be harvesting galo and selling things like
mm,
that. Then in about 3 years, the trees will fruit. Out of every so um, the flowers that are on these trees are like the size of your fingernail. Like they're so tiny that they
mm.
can actually be pollinized by a bee. They are pollinized by midges. Those really small, annoying sandflies.
Oh,
Yeah. So
oh,
the midgie,
oh.
yeah, the ones that were like
Yeah, like,
yeah. So they're actually
mm,
really super important. They pollinize the cacao trees. And from every 1,000 flowers on a tree, only 3 of those will actually be pollinized. So there's
wow.
and then most trees have to maybe 30 to 40 pods.
Mm,
Uh, and within a pod, you'll have maybe 40 grams of cacao
mm,
beans in there. And that's wet beans. That's roughly the figures.
mm, mm.
So from planting a seed to getting it, if I would have planted it in Samoa and then waited for it to come to Melbourne, it would probably take about just under 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And then once we bring it here, so back home we fermentation happens for like
Yeah,
3 to 5.
all of that is back home, and then
Yeah. All that's in Samoa. You can't export wet beans or pulp.
ah
You have to do the fermentation process and fa'ala, you need to sun dry it.
so.
Yeah, so and that's to kill the germination process for the bean.
Mm,
That means that you can't plant it here in Australia, and that's the only way you can export beans. Um, so once it arrives here, so fermentation, drying for like 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the humidity. There's 2 harvest seasons.
mm,
Um, I think like one's in May and June, and the next one is in like October and November.
mm.
But some trees will fruit throughout the year, and this is a change that has happened because of climate change. So
Ah,
usually it's just set for those 2 harvests, but some trees are changing their fruiting habits. Yeah, so once we bring it here, we roast.
mm,
We roast and then we grind. If we're making chocolate, I'll grind it for 3 days. My grinders will go, and I've got like massive 40-kilo grinders. They go for 3 days, and then we cure it. So we put it into these tubs and we let it sit for 1 to 2 months. And so
mm,
the chocolate is cacao butter, and cacao butter has different crystals in it. And so for me, the curing process is just giving time for the crystals within the cacao butter to move around and to settle. Um, and it makes it easier for tempering. So when you temper the chocolate, for dark chocolate, because we only make dark chocolate, allergy safe, like no dairy, create like a healthier version of chocolate. It has to sit at 50 degrees, and then we have to drop the temperature of the chocolate really quickly to about 30 degrees and then pour the chocolate. That means that the chocolate stays shiny and it has like this cute little snap, and it doesn't bloom, so the white cacao butter and stuff doesn't come through. So it's like this whole science.
Man, yeah, I'm just like, I need to backtrack a little bit, because as you're taking us through this whole process, I'm thinking, wait, where does Glenn come into this? His role and his story, his important role in this journey. Sorry, we gotta backtrack a little, because it just sounds like a lot of, yeah, like you said, science, and I'm like, you are not doing this on your own. Let's backtrack. So, what is, yeah, just the importance of the role that Glenn plays in this journey of living Koko?
Or Glenn being one of the co-founders of Living Koko, and has an incredible business mind, has helped a lot with, I guess, the strategy of Living Koko, understanding the machinery that we need. He currently consults to defense and acquisition of machinery. So machines and that engineering side brain has really helped. He's helped create machinery for us. Wow. So I would love to give you a tour of the space, because you'll see hard out just ingenuity. Like there are some machines that if you're buying cacao and coffee machines, they'll cost like $100,000 or like $20,000, which is just, stuff I don't know. So, a lot of it we make ourselves. And, from little bits of Bunnings things put together, but it works. And Glenn's been huge with that. Also the fit out of this whole factory that we're in now. So he works a full-time job at Defense, and then kind of helps with a lot of the strategy and machinery and things like that. But we have a team now at Living Koko. There's 2 others that are in our crew, who are absolutely awesome, and they help with the manufacturing and the sales and things like that. At the moment, what we're really focusing on is just getting into retail shops. During COVID, actually, like, COVID was quite good for Living Koko in a way. A lot of people were home. They were wanting to buy local brands in Australia. They were more conscious with their buying habits. They wanted to support, green businesses and things like that. So our sales increased, and we went from importing before COVID like 300 kilos each year, like kind of small quantities, to our last shipment was 6,000 kilos. So,
wow.
Which is why we've got the factory instead of like doing it at the other place. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a huge challenge for us. Yeah, it's been a huge challenge for us.
So you actually do you do that full time? Like, you're not studying or doing other businesses, like that is your sole focus? Living Koko.
Yeah, for most of the hours of the day, but I since getting out of COVID, and events can happen now and performances can happen, and I can be a performing artist, I've been, just interweaving it with Living Koko. So recently we did the Little Food Festival, which was a festival for kids, teaching them about food. And so we decided to do a kids work dance, like Pacific Island dance workshop with movement, teaching them about the growth of Koko. And so, they're all like doing the hula and they're stars and they're in the rain and all that kind of stuff. But just making them aware of all the natural resources that we have to look after to make this little seed grow. So, I think as a performing artist, I'm really conscious and aware of those opportunities of like, we can really promote Living Koko's brand through here. And and teach the kids about what we're doing. And yeah.
That's so cool. I love it. Man, every story you tell, I'm just like, yo, this is make a documentary. Anyone listening, anonymously listening, documentary, Living Koko, get onto it, please. And so is your customer base mostly in Australia, or have you now kind of like expanded? Where's the majority of your customer base from?
The majority is in Australia. We have, before COVID, we were in a lot of duty frees in the Pacific Islands, in Samoa, Tonga, we were also in Fiji, but tourism stopped, and you know that those retail opportunities ended for us, and we're just slowly starting to rebuild those relationships again. Mostly was D2C, so direct to consumer or direct to community was our sales through our website. Now we're looking at more like B2B, selling. How do we get into retail shops, which is a whole nother strategy, a whole nother way of thinking. And for our team, like for me and Audrey Moalo, this beautiful Tongan sister that I get to hang out with every day.
Shout out, Audrey. We see you.
All day, which is awesome. You know, for us, it was our job isn't just getting the product on the shelf. It's also, you know, how do we support, you know, the retailers who are now part of our ainga, our Living Koko community. How do we get it off their shelves? You know, how do you just don't want this one way, you know, transaction happening. This little, you know, we also want to support for the next step and get it off their shelf. So how do we promote their business? How do we go out and do tastings for them? How do we run events in their area that, you know, showcases the koko and talks about that? So we get really deep into understanding what that council is doing, you know, what festivals is that council doing, what ways can we be part of it, and, you know, to be blessed as performers, as, you know, people with cultural knowledge, Pacific cultural knowledge, and also just people that want to share our culture and, you know, our way of being. You know, we go out there with a humble heart and a nice smile and see what we can do, and realize that, you know, if the response is a no, then rejection for us is amazing. Like, I love, if I get rejected, that's clarity, you know, like that is clarity. And that makes me go, thank you. I'm not going to spend more time in this space. You're obviously not ready for us, and we're not a good fit for now. Maybe in the future we are. It's a no for now. I'm not going to keep, you know, I'm not going to beg you to take my product. I'm not going to beg you to take it. If you're not ready for what we're doing, then that's okay. You know, everyone's at different parts of their business journey as well. It's really hard out there in retail spaces, you know, to take on another SKU, to take on another product is hard, especially one that, you know, I'm not on television. You don't see my ads on TV. You know, we can't afford that kind of promotion. So if the wider public don't know about Living Koko, then how's it going to be removed from their shelves? So, you know, you have to go in there and support the journey with the retailer and help get it off their shelves as well.
I admire that about the Living Koko journey. There's just so many layers to the Living Koko story. Behind the story is the importance of food sovereignty. It's the importance of sustainability, ecological and ethical choices. And even though it's a small team, like listening to your story, I feel like, it's just, there's just so many more important people that all bring that jigsaw puzzle together. You know, vegan, allergy safe, gluten-free products, zero waste, even the thought that goes right down to the packaging. Even just listening to you sharing about it is like, keep me excited. I was like, I didn't know I could learn so much about cacao beans. And machinery. I'm like, hey, okay. That's really cool, sis. That's why I say all that to say, amazing, inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging all that. Like, food sovereignty is so important for us. It's, fundamental to our journey. It's the cornerstone of our business, Indigenous knowledge and cultivation, and ensuring that our people have, power over their food systems. The Indigenous people have power over their food systems, and access to their cultural food. They make the decisions on what gets exported out and what gets cultivated on their lands. The challenge that has happened, we'll just take Australia for example, and I won't go too into this because I'm not an expert in this field, but when with colonization in Australia, one of the first things that was colonized is the foods, the changing, the removal of Indigenous foods and the planting of like potatoes, like, so I'm just using potatoes. Like potatoes. Nah. When you're planting foods that aren't something that the lands have been nurtured for generations, for thousands of years, you have to start introducing chemical different ways to make sure that these crops grow. And then also just the way of like monocropping, which happens in most Western cultures, of just completely monocropping and just planting one kind of vegetation in that space, depletes the nutrients from the soil. Continue to then what we're blessed with in the Pacific Islands is we have volcanic, especially Samoa and Tonga, we have volcanic nutrient dense soil, and our cultivation practices is, you're like, this is our garden. It was like, it looks like the jungle, but there's lots of vegetation there, and so many different things, so many different plant and life together, supporting each other's growth. And this is incredible knowledge that our farmers have back home. They plant this tree next to this tree because this tree protects this tree from this kind of like this bug or something like that. Or they know when they prune the koko, they just leave the leaves at the bottom of the tree, and it becomes a natural pesticide. Instead of having to use pesticides, instead of shortcutting in that way, ensuring that farmers and our people being paid a good wage. Not just a living wage, a decent wage for the koko, means that that those kind of shortcuts won't be made. If you really support and respect the person that is willing these trees to come out of the ground, hey, like literally on their prayers, these trees are coming out of the ground. If you're supporting that, then in turn we're going to get a good product, a good koko bean. Then we get to create a good product with it. We honor that process with creating the products by ensuring that the ingredients that we use for the chocolate, like we won't use sugar that's from an Australian brand. We use a sugar that we get from a South American Indigenous co-op that is supporting like Indigenous ways of cultivation. I couldn't find a sugar supplier, organic cane sugar supplier here in Australia that wasn't connected to blackbirding, that wasn't connected to the dark side of the Pacific Island histories. So I was like, well, I ain't gonna support that. And then also like our other ingredients that comes into living koko, 95% of our ingredients is actually from the Pacific Islands. Whether it's from our vanilla from Niue, our coconut from Fiji, our coffee from Tonga, we want to make sure that we're always going back to the islands and trying to create markets here overseas for our incredible produce back home.
Yeah, because you've got connections in Samoa. That's the initial connection. But Papua New Guinea, how is that going?
Yeah, that's going really well. So there's, Glenn's story coming into Koko was based around a horrific accident no, it wasn't an accident, a horrific incident that happened in Papua New Guinea. Glenn and some friends were walking the Black Cat track, which is in PNG. I think it was about 2013. And on the first day, and they were walking with the PNG company that did these treks, and they had a whole group of PNG people supporting the walk and things like that. On the first day of the walk, their group were attacked, and two of the porters were killed, and a number of them were really badly injured, as well as the trekkers that were on the walk. The Australian trekkers were, helicoptered out and brought to Australia and went into hospital for checkups and things like that. The PNG porters struggled within the hospitals and the healthcare system back in PNG. And so Glenn and some of the trekkers worked with a couple of Australian hospitals and doctors, and everyone fundraised and brought Andrew and over to get support, medical support. Andrew was here for about 6 months, getting that support, and through lots of conversations with Glenn about, what to do now that he isn't walking these massive distances. He was the one who mentioned that he had like hundreds of cacao trees on his village. And at that time, like me and Glenn had just started hanging out. I guess we were like in early stages of maybe dating. But that conversation was, I think I shocked them when I said, "Oh yeah, I know about cacao." It was like,
they're like, "Huh? You do?"
What a blues. And so we started talking about, post-harvesting processes and different spaces in Samoa that could probably support them in understanding post-harvesting techniques and things like that. So we communicated with women in business who sent through all these manuals on how to build fermentation boxes and things like that. So that project went on the way and is changing and morphing in many different ways. And now we get Koko from PNG.
Wow. The Living Koko story continues to grow and evolve. It's pretty amazing, life-changing for many, by the sounds of it. It's very cool. For you personally, when we think about business, navigating the business world, entrepreneurship, what are some things that you've had to do to upskill and really gain more knowledge? Because you're actually imparting a lot of really awesome knowledge. I'm like, man, what do you have to do to upskill? Like, because I don't imagine you just wake up one morning, you've got it all there. Like, it sounds like you constantly have to work at it. And because of that, how are you able to navigate as these business spaces as a businesswoman, as a Pacifica woman, and as a woman of color? Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely didn't wake up knowing it. And one thing I have had to learn, and I'll get to the skills, but for my own development was just to be gentle on myself and not to expect everything to come at once, and not to be so hard on myself. It was really, and I found that really difficult. When you move from having full-time work into your own business, you definitely see a change in the money coming in, right? You're so used to this monthly paycheck or fortnightly paycheck, and then that's not happening. And it does take, they say it takes, sometimes 3 to 5 years before your business is actually making a profit. Or a manufacturing business that is self-funded without other investors, it takes a much longer amount of time, because you're constantly seeing choke points within your manufacturing processes that require another machine, another level up of machine. And once you level up this machine, you see the choke point here, then you're constantly leveling up each machine as you go along. So it has taken many years before, personally being able to get an income from that. So there's that part. Things I needed to really learn was I needed to unpack my money narratives. I think toxic is probably a too strong a word, but they're really negative money narratives that I had, and my blockages on pricing, my thoughts that, everyone was like me. If I can't afford my chocolate, how can they afford my chocolate? And they're like, you can't afford your chocolate at the moment, Phoebe, because you're just broke and you're working your business. But not everyone's in that space, and you got to really learn what your chocolate is worth, and also make sure that it's competitive in the market. And compare apples to apples. I wouldn't compare our chocolate to Cadbury. Like Cadbury, it's a very different business model and a very different space, and where they're getting their cacao from, where ours is, high quality, niche market space. So yeah, understanding prices, and then also just understanding about how to scale your business. I think people have side hustles and they have hobbies. They have hobbies, and they have side hustles, and then you need to decide if you're actually going to go into a business, and that's serious stuff. And even when you're in a space of growing your business, you soon realize that those that are working with side hustles and with hobbies aren't showing up 150% to their business, and you're showing up 150% to your business. So you have to surround yourself with other people that are like-minded in that space, that that understand the risk that you're holding in that space, because there's a lot of risk, and there's a lot of things that risk that we hold that we won't pass on to anyone else, and costs and things that we hold that we don't pass on to anyone else. Having the right team and the right people around you, not just my staff, but also like your business ainga, like people you can really trust, that are safe spaces to share what's going on with your business and honestly talk about your business. I've been in places where no one is really honestly talking about where their business is at, or overinflating where their business is at, because ego kicks in and they're worried that they're going to be judged, that they're still in a startup stage. And there's been times where I've been that person too, and then I realized I'm not going to get incredible wisdom from my peers if I'm pretending that I'm doing really amazingly well. So I was just, trying to be honest from the start. Like, I'm struggling. I'm understanding this, or this and that. There's also some great resources out there. Like there's a book called Profit First, which is strange to talk about a book called Profit First when our business model is community first.
Right.
But what it teaches you is how to divide the money, the income that comes into your business based on what taxes and what bills you need to pay, like having 5 different bank accounts, and how to set that up, and how to make sure that there's always funds there to pay your bills, and also funds there to save to be able to grow your business. So things like that were really, really good for us too. And then I also think you need a good business strategist. I know great things at uni, and just working in different industries. Glenn has a great mind with business as well, but we're so in it. We're so far into this thing that it's hard to have a helicopter view that isn't so emotionally charged, because we've both been working, nonstop on something. It's hard to see an issue that's happened with clarity and be able to come to a logical solution. So we have a great business strategist that, we might catch up with her once a year, and just pay the money to catch up with her once a year, and to what do they call it? Like chew the fat, like go through this is the biggest issue for us at the moment. What do you think? And she'll be like, have you tried this, and this? But I think that's really important. And if you have a good network of other business owners that are doing kind of similar things to you, they share incredible things that help you on your journey.
Self-care.
Oh my God, self-care.
How okay, I don't mean to give you a shock. I thought I'd just ease in, but apparently no. Okay, please, Fipe, how do you? Please tell me that you look after yourself. That you do other things outside of business to really just take care of you and your family.
I do. It took me a long time to figure that out, and running a business, and also being a woman. You know, I'm now in my mid-40s, so we're going to talk about women stuff right now. So
you
past
go, sis.
So past the age of 35, you're heading into perimenopause stage. Perimenopause stage is a lot of changes within your body, a lot of inflammation happening, a lot of rejections of certain foods. When your cortisone levels, so when your stress levels are high, then you start rejecting certain foods that you're taking. You're exhausted all the time. There's so many changes happening with your body. You feel like you've just sorted out your periods, and then perimenopause hits, and you're like, so that was, growing Living Koko was around that time. The immense amount of pressure that I was putting on myself to build a business, my lack of self-worth because I didn't see money coming in straight away, like all of that was feeding into my anxiety and my stress. And I really had to look at Living Koko as, Living Koko being this va'a, this waka, and there are all these currents that are floating underneath, trying to keep our waka afloat. But one current is money. There are so many other currents that are supporting it: purpose, kindness, collaborations. There's all these things that we're so good at. The money will come. Don't be concerned that the money isn't holding up your waka right now. Like, just work on everything else and keep building your name, your brand, get your practice and your product perfect, and then it will come. And we're starting to, see that now in what we're doing. For self-care, I've got this awesome soul tribe. We call ourselves the Pacifica Olympic swim team.
Shout them out, sis. Shout them out. Give them their flowers.
They are so awesome. And every Sunday we meet at Williamstown Beach, which is about like 20 minutes from here, at around 7 a.m., 6:30, 7 a.m. And we're there for about 2 hours. We, winter or summer. So we're there in winter. We're there sometimes when it's raining. We know that, that 2 hours that we're there is a complete reset and helps us get through the rest of the week. A really safe space for us to talk about anything that's coming up, and a safe space to vent, that we know that things aren't going to go off in other spaces. We don't gossip. We're ideas women that are really we're in such different industries too, so to all come together and our crew are, Pacific Island all come together and share our learnings in different spaces and our experiences. There are many times where we're all hitting our heads against brick walls in our industry, but that's, paving the way is hitting your head against a brick wall and getting all the learnings and trying changing cultures of different spaces. That's all part of paving the way, and these women are definitely doing that in their space. So
shout out to the crew.
Shout out to
the crew.
Shout out to the Pacific Olympic swim team that can't swim.
You mentioned a book already. Do you? I mean, I don't want to assume that you have any free time. Do you like to read? Do you have time to perhaps read here and there, or is it really just more business related books?
Um, I do read a little bit. I find I read like half a page and I fall asleep.
I can't blame you. You're exhausted. You're like full on, like.
Um, but I love reading different books about philosophy, about just understanding ways of being, about being a human being. You know, we're very spiritual beings having a very human existence, and how we navigate that. I love there's a book called Man Enough, and there's a podcast called Man Enough that I tune into every Tuesday. I think they have an episode, and that just explores, masculine toxicity, which, as women in business and in the Pacific Islands and also here in Australia, we come across a lot of that. There's women coming through and leading the way, and it is where we come across resistance. And so it's just understanding that better and meeting it with compassion. And I find that these books help me with that, help me fight with a gentle spirit. I think that's what Mum taught me. My mum just has so much grace. Like, she walks in the room and she floats. And where people are reacting, she's there reflecting, contemplating, and then she's a woman of few words, and when she does speak, it's just potent goodness.
Like right in your face.
And so for me it's about learning more of that and that way of being, that you can lead with gentle grace.
I like that, leading with gentle grace. Let's plug Living Koko. For those who are listening, for those who are watching, how can we connect? How can people connect, find you, support Living Koko? Like,
okay, so you can find us on livingkoko.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. If you want to support us, you can buy our products, or you can just share about our business. If you see a post that resonates with you, share or tag a friend. If you have your favorite retailer, what do you call it? Like a health food or, specialty retail shop that's in your area that you go to that you'd love to see our products in, tag them in our posts. With one of our, some of our best connections with retail shops is we've had our community go out there and be like, hey, you need to get Living Koko in here. And they'll reach out to us and say, hey, I've had like a couple of people talk about you and we want to get you in here. So we love that response. You're right. It's a whole community. It's a whole web of people that I haven't even met face to face that are, big upping and supporting our brand and believe in what we do. And, they may not be buying the products, but they're talking about it in different ways and talking about our values. And I think that's so cool, man. Like, it's really awesome. There's tears to my eyes to know that there's like an invisible army, hey, that just gets it. Yeah.
You heard it here. It's not the BTS army, folks. It's the Living Koko army. Just putting it out there. If you can support livingkoko.com, support a sister, support support Pacifica businesses, support small businesses. Just do your thing, fam. Follow on Instagram, follow on Facebook, check the bio. I have some links there to help you get in touch with Fipe. Whether it's buying the products like you said, or it's just I swear, sharing something on your story, planting a seed in someone's mind, it goes a long way. I'm really just feeling some kind of way about our chat, about our talanoa. There's so many gems. You don't even realize it. When I researched you, I was like, "Oh, this is amazing! So many interviews. Okay, this is good. This is good." But I am still in awe. Like even all of that, but then hearing you share in this space, I am so grateful, Fipe. I love so much how you uplift others. Because that says a lot about you as well. How you support other community businesses and other community folks. Yeah, so thank you so much, sis. Over to you.
Firstly, I want to acknowledge you, sis. Oh my gosh, like your words. Great. Now I'm crying on the TV.
Oh my gosh, don't get me started. I actually cried one time, but let's not make this about me. It's about living Koko.
Like to be seen by our our peers, our community. I just want to say thank you. Like thank you for the invitation and thank you for trusting me to come and talk on your activation, on your awesome podcast. Like the work you do in showcasing Pacific Island people and excellence is just mind-blowing, and it's so important. Like it's exact like everything our people do is amazing and excellent. We just need platforms and safe spaces, culturally safe spaces, to bring that out. And so what you do, creating a culturally safe space, is incredible. So thank you, hun. Like thank you. Yeah, crying now. I'm not crying, you're crying. And wise words of wisdom. I always get stuck in these parts. I think if we walked a more conscious, intentional path, really thought deeply about our choices, we would live an existence with more purpose and more light and fulfillment. Sometimes we don't have the time. Sometimes we're living in survival mode and we don't have that time and that opportunity to really think deeply about why we're programmed in a certain way. But, there are so many narratives that aren't serving us, so many narratives and ways of being, unhealthy habits that aren't serving us. So, I hope that we all take that time to really look inside and figure those things out and walk with intention and purpose in everything we do, not just our day-to-day, but also our eating habits and also our spiritual connection and to our higher power and all that stuff. If we spent less time talking about people and more time working on our purpose and living with intention, then man, we're just all going to have a happier existence.